It was in my early 20s that I first, when I was studying in London, where I first encountered sexual exploitation. I used to visit in brothels there in Soho. And it was shortly after that that I moved, after I'd finished studying, I moved to Thailand, to Bangkok, and I started working for an organisation there called Nightlight, and I was there for 5.5 years, enabling women out of the sex industry. Shortly after moving there, my focus became women who were trafficked into Bangkok, predominantly from Uzbekistan and Uganda. And we would assist the women, we would help them escape, then we would house them, rehabilitate them, and then help them repatriate them back to their country of origin. At the end of 2011, having met with so many Uzbek women, I got to thinking, well, maybe I should move to Uzbekistan. So I returned to London, which is where I grew up. And as I said, thought I would move to Uzbekistan, but that didn't happen. I ended up staying put in London. And it was during my time back, just the first few months being back in London, I began to become more aware of the situation of trafficking and what was happening in this country. And I was really shocked, actually, to discover what I found, to discover the extent of it within the UK, and also, more than that, actually, the limitations on aftercare. That's become my focus. So even when people getting out of trafficking have escaped horrific situations, the level of care, the support needed for them to fully recover is limited. There is amazing work being done all around the country by incredible organisations, but they would all recognise as well that the resources being put into that is very limited, and often people aren't given the full chance to recover. So in January of this year, we opened a home called Ella's Home, and it's for women who've come out of trafficking, sexual exploitative situations. We're the only safe home in London that offers long-term support within a community setting. We also offer outreach services to women around London as well who've also been trafficked but might live independently. For all the women we're working towards combating isolation, encouraging community integration, equipping women for independent living. We work on their health needs, their immigration needs, their mental health, emotional needs. We have a counsellor who comes into the home, also working with multi-agencies to provide life skills and offer training and employability. I have just a few minutes to speak, so I won't give you Ella's story now, but Ella is the girl that the home is named after, and she's actually a woman that I first met when I was in Thailand, and she's a Russian Uzbek who was working in a brothel there. She ended up in London, very long story, but had a mental health breakdown, and when she was in a brothel in London, contacted me for support. And it was sort of at that point that I really realised that there was nowhere for her to go. But it happens here, it happens in the UK. It was only literally just now in the car as we travelled down. I travelled down with my mum that I thought, I have an experience in Sussex. So one of the girls that I mentor through the organisation that I worked for before, she was caught up in trafficking, and she actually testified against her traffickers in a court in Sussex, I think about 2 years ago now, and I sat with her in that courtroom. She said that was the scariest thing she's ever done. She even asked me before going into that courtroom, could I give myself an injury so that I don't have to testify, so that they think that that I don't have to. She was so terrified of that, but she did testify. And as a result, the traffickers were sentenced because of her bravery. But as I said, I do meet women, British women who've been trafficked. And I've worked with 3 at the moment, actually, who I'm in touch with to varying degrees. And one of the British women, I'm just going to quickly tell you her story. I'm running out of time here, but she is one of the most inspiring young women I've ever come across. I tell her that every time I talk to her. I'll call her Kate from here. That's not really her real name. But Kate, she grew up in the care system, and from a young child to her to 18, she was moved around various foster homes. At 18, she went to university, and she was going to university, very lonely, no support structure, as you can imagine, come out of being around lots of different homes. So at university, she was very alone, and she met this guy online, and he invited her to come. Well, actually, he came and met her, and then he invited her to his country in Europe somewhere. And because she hated her situation, she went to meet him. And from that point on, she became his sex slave. For a year, he would bring men in to meet her, and she would have to do things that I can't even repeat, here today. But really terrible, terrible situation. She's incredibly intelligent, and I do think it is her resilience, her intelligence, her capacity to survive that got her out of that. One day, knowing his sort of routine, she went to the safe where her passport was kept, and she stole from it her passport and enough money, she thought, to get her back to the UK. She told me that she was very afraid because, coming back to the UK, for a year she hadn't had many proper clothes to wear, so she stole a random nightie and whatever was lying around, and she put that on and she went to the airport. But she was very afraid of what people would say when she was coming back through immigration, like, who's this girl turning up in random clothes? They were going to ask her loads of questions. Where's she been for a year? What's been happening? And she was not wanting to go through that whole process. But she came through immigration, and as it happened, nobody batted an eyelid, nobody asked her anything. So she went to her social worker who, in her childhood years, had been there for her. And she turned up at her social worker's office, and her social worker said to her, "Oh, what are you doing here? I thought you were at university." As it turned out, nobody had known that this girl had been missing. Nobody had known that she'd been missing for an entire year, not even her university, where she'd gone missing from. Shortly after that, the police did get involved, the social worker got police involved, and they moved her for her safety to another part of England. She was, again, very isolated, no community, no support. So one day, she actually, through the work that I was doing, she managed to get in touch, and she sent an email simply saying, "How will I ever be normal again?" We started emailing and contacting, then I met her a couple of months after that. And I could see just from her way, she was all hunched over. She physically carried the heaviness of what she'd endured. The horror of all of that on her. So she asked me how would she be normal again, and so I encouraged her that, to get back into life, to work, to education, actually, because she is so intelligent. And so she did. She started pursuing a degree. She's now nearly coming towards the end of that. Last year, she finished first. She got a first. She finished top of the year. She's got into running. She's run several marathons. She actually just messaged me 2 weekends ago with a great time. She was really happy with it. And just total transformation. And as I said, I could tell you story after story of even just heard this morning. And just seeing from her that not only is survival possible, or even getting back to life as normal, but even life in fullness is possible. So that's what we're trying to do with Ella's home, and many of the other women that we work with, just hoping and seeking to bring full life to many women again.